So this is going to be my 99th video on YouTube. So you know how double numbers are auspicious. So there's got to be something behind that. So this is my 99th video. You know, 99 is a magical number because anything plus 9 becomes 9. Because 9 plus 9 equals 18. 8 plus 1 is a 9. So like the Indian malas, they were always 108 beads. 108, you add all that together, you get a 9. So 9 is a number that is known as transformation, and it's also like the invisible mystical number because like for example, I said it a little bit backwards, but if you do 3 and 9 together, the 9 disappears and then you have a 3 because 9, 10, 11, 12, 2 plus 1 is 3. So 9 has this weird quality about it, and it's the last number if you're going like 1 through 9, 1 through 10, because 0 is the last number there. And we're going to go into that a little about numbers in a little bit of a hypothetical way. But so this is my 99th video, and this is kind of if you go on YouTube and you find my videos, it's kind of like a progression of what I've gone through. When I share something, let me say this, when I share something, it's just my understanding of different things I've studied. No way am I saying this is truth. It's only going to resonate with you if it resonates with you. And another aspect to this is like everyone on this planet is on a different grade level. So somebody maybe in 3rd grade, you try to tell, from 5th grade, you know, you think you know a lot. From the 5th grade, you tell a 3rd grader, hey, I got this information. Well, the 3rd grader may not be able to understand that. For example, if you've got this quantum mechanics, you've got this down and you want to share with somebody else to help them speed along their growth, they may not be able to understand what you're saying, which means they have to go through their own growth and learning to get to a point where they can hear you, which I'm going to bring in today because, you know, I don't believe in karma anymore. And there's a couple reasons why I don't believe in karma. Number one is if it's all about growth and everything that happens to us, whether extremely negative or positive, leads to that growth, who owes anybody anything? That's one thing. Another level that happens with that is non-judgment, because everyone's at a different level. I can't look at a 3rd grader and judge them because they're in the 3rd grade. If I do that, I actually limit where I am. And we're going to get into how this actually, I think, it works. All right, chills. How it came to me for me to understand to get it. And I'll try to share that with you. It's like any of us in here have had ahas, right? It's hard to share an aha that you have because sometimes those are personal. So that's why I like to use pictures, because to tell you something, it's difficult to give you the feeling. So I'm going to do my best through pictures to help you have the aha and experience. So I can't just tell you straight up, forward. Okay, I think that's why a lot of the mystics used to always tell parables, because you give somebody a story, they put themselves in the position and they have the awakening on their own. So I'm not trying to tell you any truth. I'm trying to give you a little bit of an experience, and whatever you take from this tonight, my hope is that it helps expand your awareness, your consciousness, helps you become more empowered, more loving, more nurturing, more spirit-filled. That's my goal. Besides that, I can't make you do anything. I mean, I can't make you come. So if you came here, even if it's like your first time, you're like, okay, this guy's cuckoo, he's talking about all these weird concepts. You know, if you showed up here, obviously there's a reason. So everything, in my opinion, is cosmic, and there are no accidents. It's all synchronicity. So speaking about that, we're going to get into the YOUniverse 99 video, like I said, on YouTube. So to me, what's interesting is Stephen mentioned there's actually almost a balance between male and female, which is interesting because that's what I was focusing on with this video. And we're also going to be looking at general relativity and quantum physics. Not a lot, but just kind of looking at it in general. And I don't know if you know about this, we're going to discuss this, but general relativity, which Einstein helped make popular, and then quantum physics, they don't mesh with one another. And there's an issue, there's a reason why it doesn't mesh, is it causes a huge problem, because the quantum physics describes everything tiny and small that we don't see. General relativity explains the large things, and actually we fly to the moon because we understand general relativity. But the interesting thing, the two aspects that make up our reality is we don't have a mathematics that makes both of those work together. And to me, why it doesn't work is because we're split. We're dualistic. Okay, we're polarized. We have an unconscious and we have a conscious mind. To me, the expanded being is superconscious. There is no unconscious. It's all one consciousness. There's no separation. So a lot of things about separation and unity have to happen to get to the full point of what I'm explaining. I haven't fully reached the point I'm talking about, but now I have a little bit of a map for myself, and hopefully I can give you a little bit of an idea even if it's just something you steer away from. It'll give you a little more direction to go in your own life. So you know how I love to play with words, and what's really cool is, when you're around somebody, you pick up their vibration, their frequency, and everybody that comes here, they pick up this whole thing, whether they did it before or more so. Everybody I know now sees codes and words, and everybody that's come to the group, because it's like you've been printed, you've been attuned, like Reiki. You don't have to have the attunement process that's supposedly mystical and magical. There is the truth to that. But you know what the attunement is? Is hanging out with somebody that does Reiki. That is the attunement. So by hanging out in this vibe together, we get attuned to one another. We get attuned to knowledge. So my job tonight is to attune you to something that can possibly expand your awareness, speed your growth, and help you become who you really want to be. So let us begin. Universe. It's you, and you're the universe. There's the whole thing about microcosm and the macrocosm. And there's an Ayurvedic saying that says the keys to the universe are as close as the veins in your neck. Meaning, you don't have to study the universe, you can study yourself and understand the universe, because they work by the same principles. Okay? And science's goal is to prove that. But sometimes science fails. Almost like science fiction is what proves not science. So let's start with this. What do quantum mechanics and general relativity have to do with spirituality? Well, they have a lot to do with spirituality. I'm going to describe these two together. I just watched a video, The Elegant Universe. It's a Nova special, and some of these I froze the screen and captured the pictures. They have their own. It's like anything else. Whatever you hear from me tonight, you're going to take and mold into your own perception, your own reality. So when I watched this video, I've watched stuff on general relativity and quantum mechanics before, but this thing that I was working on, this was timely because it helped me see these two things in an entirely different way. So we have quantum mechanics and we have general relativity. There's two theories, and like I mentioned before, they don't mesh with one another. In other words, the math you use to find out what's going to happen on the quantum level, you can't use in general relativity. And you can't use general relativity to describe quantum mechanics. But if it takes two of these things to make reality, it means we have to find the unified theory to understand it. Okay? Which means we're missing an understanding within the global consciousness, because we're all connected. So as we expand our consciousness, so does everyone else. Or it's like a wave thing. I mean, there are people still in 3rd grade, 4th grade, so on. So we're going to look at this just a little bit. I'm going to try to build upon this. I'm hoping we'll have plenty of time at the end, but usually when I get to talking, we can go on some tangents. So if somebody needs to slap me back in line, feel free to.
Okay.
Started
around.
So let's visit general relativity. Okay, general relativity explains the big. It's what we see. Einstein helped understand gravity with this general relativity explanation. Basically, there is like a time-space matrix, if you will. Okay, this is a 2D representation, but it's much more in depth than this. And Einstein died saying God can't play dice with the universe. And he couldn't expand his unawareness of what was going on because he could not open his mind to understand, which is really interesting about the whole collective. Because here's Einstein rejecting the quantum physics because he's the general relativity. But maybe he represented on a larger scale just the split consciousness of us on a different level. You know what I mean? Just like I think Hitler, what happened during that time period was actually bringing to the surface darkness we all had, and it had to play out on the larger field so we could purge it on a different level. So the general relativity explains the big. It explains what we see. It actually is the mathematics that helps us go to the moon. It helps us do things like that. You can use it to predict things. So general relativity is a lot more of a predictable math. Like, to get from here, fly to the moon and land on the moon, you better have your math right, or you're going to freaking miss the moon, right? So, but that's general relativity. Everybody with me on that? Okay. And the video that I've taken some of these pictures from, is The Elegant Universe, and it's a Nova special. You can Netflix it. So, now what Einstein did to explain gravity, he says that there's a time-space continuum that, like this little, I would call game board, this little grid, right? And basically gravity is, imagine saran wrap, and I put my magic carrot in the saran wrap, you know how it would bend the time and space, right? So gravity isn't necessarily so much a magnetic force as time and space is being bent by an object, and that divot that it creates is what creates the orbit. So what's really attracting different things is the bending of time and space. Now that's going to be important later on in this little talk we're doing, is gravity is simply time and space being bent, and Einstein proved that. He actually took the theory of gravity, and Isaac Newton came up with the gravity. But the thing about Isaac Newton is he lacked the ability to describe what gravity was. Einstein actually was able to prove what gravity was. It's a bend in time and space by having mass, and we'll get into a little bit of that later. So it's a bending of time and space. And it doesn't just happen with our sun, it happens with the moon, with our Earth, our Earth, or the moon rotates around. It happens with the galaxies, everything. So there's this little grid, and when there's mass to something, the mass bends time and space, and it appears to attract something. But imagine, let's say that there's a piece of material here, right? And if I put the carrot here and it bends time and space, see how it pulls something closer to it? Okay? Where we're going to get to at the end of this is that we're doing this all the time. Something we want to create, something we want to draw to our lives, or repel. It's our gravity, our mass, which I'm going to explain that in a different way, is what is bringing things to us or pushing them away. We've got to get a hold of that if you're going to self-mastery. Everybody with me? Yep. Okay. So here it is in a 2D, but really it's something like this. It's like this wicked little, matrix. It's like 3D. Okay, it's like it goes in, and it's actually 4D, not 3D. 4D is like going inward. So we have height, width, space, time, all in one place. And this bending, can you see in this picture? I didn't get a really great picture. See how these little bars are bending? Mm-hmm. So here it is undisturbed, right? But imagine you're in this space and you have a field happening, it's not just this linear thing, because we know we're much more depth than this. So I bend everything around me, okay, based on a couple of things we're going to get into. It's the fun stuff. So here we have, oh man, I'm cheating. Here we have, does that make sense? We're like in this matrix. It's like we're in the ocean. We're not just floating on the surface of something. We're deep inside of it. Okay. Oops. So I made another video called The Game, and I remember. And the thing about that, the 64-bit computer like the one I'm using right now. What's interesting is the chessboard is actually a 2D representation of a 64-bit computer system. You've got 8 times 8, 64. And with this square matrix, you could literally make anything.
It works on a binary system.
Exactly. It works in a binary system, which, by the way, your DNA has 64 codons and works in a binary system, simply on and off. Right there is another, because there's these fractals, the hologram, it all works together. Ooh, it's going to be a good one. Okay. So it's less like this and more like this. Okay. So this huge matrix game, if you will, that we are enmeshed in. It looks a lot like a Rubik's Cube, right? We've actually, there's also some theory out there about us being in a hologram, or taking it to another level, is like a simulated, I'm not saying this is a reality, I'm just saying that there is some theory and some people's idea that we're in some generated reality, like a sim program, and that it's a game, that we all have certain lessons and things to learn, and we jack into this, we have the experience, we get through the game, we solve the problem for ourselves, boom, right? I just find it interesting that is, you could actually say that's kind of what's going on to some level. I'm not going to stick with that. I'm going to go a different way, but if you want to play with that video is at this, I'm going to make this into a YouTube, so you don't have to worry about writing all this stuff down. But the video I made that was specific about addressing this reality as being a sim program that we're learning and experiencing in, my YouTube is called The Game. I'm not going to go into that here, but interesting. So, the quantum field, this is the fun field. Here we are, all New Agers, all that quantum field, anything is possible. The thing about that is Just like the physics, bless you, just like the physics has a problem making general relativity, our physical reality, mesh with quantum mechanics, so too do us New Agers have a problem with making the quantum field do what we want to get reality sometimes, right? So we'll affirm something. I am wealthy and wise. I have plenty of money. You know, on and on and on. And yeah, the movies like The Secret and stuff like that are giving us clues, okay? But it's only a small fraction of the picture. The Secret's only a small fraction of the whole picture. It's not just about what you think and you hold. There's a lot more to that going on. So we're trying to control the quantum field when anything is possible with general relativity in a way, and it doesn't work. We have to have a unified field theory, the same thing that they're looking for. They're looking for a unified field theory to make quantum mechanics and general relativity mesh into one, and then you have the theory of everything. You basically know how it all works, because the mathematics will work in both realms. Does that make sense? That's why in the physics world they have this problem, because they can't get the little to match with the big. So on a quantum field, yes, it's true. Anything is possible. And we're going to discuss this in a minute. But string theory, actually, for string theory to work, which is the closest thing to actually proving, having the math match on quantum level and the general relativity level, demands that there has to be multiple dimensions for that to even be possible. So for quantum mechanics, for us to be able to, in our spiritual walk, our metaphysical growth and expansion, our empowerment, for us to be able to grab a hold of the quantum mechanic world and transform it into the physical world we're really experiencing in our daily life, we have to understand the thing that's between them, the thing that they're actually looking for, which is the unified field theory. We have to get that ourselves. And I believe I have a key into what that might be. So the quantum field, as opposed to the general relativity, explains the very small. I mean, the stuff you don't even see, okay? And nothing in this, so where in general relativity things were predictable, like if I shoot my rocket up and have to do all this mechanics, fuel burning, I mean, imagine the math behind that, and then land on the moon. That's a huge feat, right? But it's predictable. In quantum mechanics, it's not predictable. You may want something, but you may not get it, because it is unpredictable. So you've got to have something, some kind of thing, at least in the math, and we're not going to do the math, we're going to do something that goes beyond the math, but is math, is, that's like a Dr. Seuss thing, is that we have to be able to mesh the two together to get the quantum world to do exactly what we wanted to do. But there's some things that have to happen within each one of us for us to be able to access that. Just like you don't give a child a loaded 45, Spirit realm is not stupid. There's some things that we have to actually do individually. I'm going to tell you some things, but you have to do certain things yourself to get it. I can't do it for you. There are 8 limbs in Chinese medicine. 8 limbs of the tree in Chinese medicine. You know everybody kind of familiar with Chinese medicine is, right? Yes. Acupuncture, things like that. 1 through 8. Where do you think acupuncture falls on that? The limbs of 1 being the most important, 8 being the least important. Where do you think acupuncture falls in that spectrum, 1 through 8? Just give me a number. Huh?
7 or 8.
Yeah, you're right. Y'all are a weird group. No fun. Okay, y'all are 8. It's 8. Acupuncture, which Chinese medicine is known for, is 8. You know what the top 3 are? Number 1. Oh my God! I've already told y'all.
I remember John.
Okay. All right.
We're 5th grade.
Well, maybe I'm repeating it, or whoever. Okay. So it's meditation, exercise, which is like yoga, qigong, and diet. Why those 3 things? Why those 3 things? That's the only thing you can do for yourself. That is self-mastery. You can only meditate for yourself. You can only exercise for yourself, and you can only eat for yourself. The other things can be done. You can go to acupuncture to get a needle, but if you go back to the same thing you've been doing before, hell, you're not going to get anywhere, right? Self-mastery is the key. So those 3 things become very important if you want to start playing with the quantum field. You can't just go, okay, I'm going to start meditating and fairy bending, visualize this, and that works to a certain degree, but if you're not willing to do the meditation, the exercise, and the focusing of your energy, then you're never going to be able to get the equation right yourself. Because you know what? The answer to the unified field theory is you. You are the unified field theory, but you do not turn on, that equation does not turn on in you until something happens. We're going to discuss that.
Yeah. The last thing, as in it.
Oh, so remember the general relativity, thank you, I was going to totally miss that. So in general relativity, I can predict blasting off and landing on the moon. In quantum mechanics, It's all probably going to happen. Okay? There's no definition. That's why they call it probability. Make sense? It's probably going to happen. Okay, I'm gonna tap this into the quantum field, and I don't know what's going to happen. But if we're trying to create with the quantum field, don't we want to have a little more accuracy to what happens? Yes. Right now we don't. Think about it. In your daily life, we use the secret, our focusing, our meditation. We're all aware of these types of things. But are you getting things consistently every time on everything all the time? The reason being is that you're split. You're split between the quantum world and the general relativity. And you've got to unify those things. And the unity happens, the unify within you. So, in this realm, it'll probably happen. So if you're meditating, I'm wealthy and wise, I have a great house, that's good. You put that into the quantum field, probably you'll get it. Okay, that's that's like the roll of the dice that Einstein hated. Einstein hated that idea that God rolled the dice. But you've got to take in both accounts, just like you've got to take in male, female, yin and yang, to see the whole picture. It's like we want to just look at this picture, but not this picture. In the quantum world, some people will still hate the idea of quantum mechanics, just like Einstein. I think Einstein could have gone a lot much further had he been open. And we're going to talk about this because our judgments actually lock us into certain quantum possibilities. If you judge something, you are locked into that quantum possibility only happening in your reality. Just chew on that because we're going to go over that in a second. Everybody good?
Yes.
Okay. The problem, and I've already talked about this, but I guess I need to repeat it. The problem is that these two mathematics are not interchangeable. You can't use general relativity in the quantum world and vice versa, even though I wrote would. Like I said, I did this in like 5 hours a day. This means we are missing something in between that puts them together. So some pieces of our puzzle are missing. Excuse me. How to unify. And they're actually looking for like the theory of everything, because once they find what puts it together, it's like their understanding will just blow out the ceiling, because here you have all these equations that explain half of reality. Here you have these other equations that explain the other half of reality. If you can find one that puts them all together, what do you get? Complete understanding, right? That's why there's this search for the theory of everything. It's also called the unifying theory. It unifies the quantum and the general relativity. So string theory looks pretty promising, in that its mathematics actually work both in the small, the microcosm, and the large, the macrocosm. So it's very promising. But there's a drawback to string theory. In physics, string theory is theoretical because it can't be proved, because the things it's talking about are so small. Because science, science says I have to be able to observe it and interact with it in an experiment to prove it. Does that make sense? So string theory is unprovable because you cannot interact at the level that they're talking about. I mean, you can actually interact at the quantum level, which is fascinating enough to me. You can actually interact with atoms and quarks and things like that. But string theory makes it even smaller and bigger at the same time, and there's no way to form experiments around that. There is one way. You are the experiment. You can actually start playing, after we talk about this today, experimenting with quantum mechanics and doing the string theory yourself. So string theory, we're going to get into just a little bit of this. This movie explains quite a bit of it, and I kind of like the way it explains it. I've seen other things that explain it better, but it's a good enough one. So string theory basically says that there are strings out there, much like this rubber band. Of course, very, very small. We can't even see them. I can't even see them with a microscope. And basically what happens is it's moving, it's vibrating, and doing all these different things. So with this one single rubber band, it can be in almost an unlimited configuration, thank you, Stephen, or vibration, okay? And that's the key. That's what puts it together. So we're going to look at what is tying this string in a particular way and how we can work with that string to not just let it kind of willy-nilly do its thing, but find out how we can be in the general relativity, interact with the quantum world, and bring it back. And we are the center. We are the unifying theory. Everybody with me so far? Okay. The problem with string theory is that there are no, I already said that, but I'll say it again. There are no experiments or observations, which that's what the definition of science is. I can look at it, I can play with it, I can test it, that can be done to prove or disprove it. Because of this, some say string theory is simply a philosophy. Okay, because I can make up anything, and if you can't prove it, then it's a philosophy. Like what I'm saying here to you, I can't prove any of it. It's just another one of John's mad writings. So, You have to use what you need to use for you. So that's the problem with string theory. So basically string theory, there's like bazillion of these strings everywhere in reality, okay? We don't see them, but they're in the physical reality and they're in the quantum physics reality, which we don't see, even though it's probably just as full here between us as it is when you touch my body. My body is solid, seemingly, but it's just as solid out here. We can't perceive that. So, who is pulling your strings? I'm not saying this theory is accurate. I'm not saying string theory is it, but it's pretty interesting to me because, I'm always playing with words, and if you look at the word universe, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So, however, I do like the idea of string theory as there is a component of vibration and frequency, just like strings on an instrument. So when you pluck a string, a vibration happens, and we get harmony, music, things like that. So here we have this woman here, cello, and here this is called string position. So different vibrations of a string give you different frequencies. All a frequency is how much a wave goes up and down in a certain distance. That's frequency. That's all it is. So we get the different notes from frequency. So when we hear music, that's actually mathematics. Music is mathematics and vice versa. You can actually say music is also a unifying theory. So the universe, you break that word down, uni being one, verse being song. The universe is simply one song that we are all an instrument within. Okay? And we all have a way to access, and if we're playing ourselves the way we should be, then basically the universe flows in harmony. It's like this flute. And see, this flute has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 holes. Let's say that's your chakra system, okay, that flute. You are an instrument. It's the spirit, the chi that flows through you that causes the music to happen. But you are the thing that brings the music in. Without any flute, the music's not going to happen, right?
You're what causes the disruption in vibration.
Yeah, the disruption or the organizing, whatever it is. Because, Stephen brought up a good point. Disorganization or disharmony is what we call dis-ease. That's all it is. It's a vibration that is unhealthy. Okay,
but the tube by itself can't make noise, and the wind by itself can't make noise. It's when the two come together. And
I guess if I spin it fast enough, it would.
But even then, you're getting the wind by itself.
I'm getting the chi going through. Yeah,
it goes through it. So it's the vibration of the two interacting.
And if I want to create great music,
Creates music.
I have to work on my instrument only. I'm not working on what's happening around me. I'm working on myself only. I'm not trying to change the world. I'm changing myself. So universe, one song. That's why I like the whole string theory, because it falls in line with, pluck a string and vibration happens and reality happens.
I was also looking at that since we're talking about words and meanings of words. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking one song, but it's also our song.
Yeah, I like that.
It's you and I.
Ah, good one.
You and I.
Dang it.
One thing about the words and breaking them down like that, how does that work across other languages?
It works just as well. Like the Holy Grail is actually Sangrail, and that breaks down to actually song. So the Holy Grail is actually talking about a song itself. It's really, I have a friend who speaks Spanish, and she actually does editing for Spanish language, and we're playing with words all the time. Of course, she has to explain to me because I'm really blocked up that way as far as language goes, which is a shame because if I knew all these other languages, like Latin, why do we call certain things the way we do? Yeah, but what's interesting about that is when we call something a particular thing, we may not even be aware, or we weren't conscious at the time that actually ties into something more spiritual meaning, which is amazing, to how our language, we don't realize how much it is a feedback system, a feed loop. So there's hidden messages in everything, every language. And in every language there's different, of course, you can interpret things different ways, but you can play with that definitely.
You can interpret things like universe, in Chinese, what would that,
I'm not sure about that, Tom. It's like I said, I'm limited as far as language goes. But I know that Spanish totally falls in suit there, so I wouldn't doubt that would in its own way. Yeah. And some of y'all might have seen Dr. Emoto's work, who's from Japan.
Oh, yeah.
Where they freeze the crystals, they freeze the water, and the waters form certain shapes. His name is Dr. Emoto. Emote as in emotion. So to me, I cannot separate anymore that when I see something, I can no longer take it at face value because there's always a deeper meaning to it. Just like, we talked in here before about Asperger's, autism, and things like that. And, Temple Grandin, it's interesting, Temple Grandin. There's a bone inside here called the sphenoid bone. And my hypothesis is that's actually the Ark of the Covenant. The pituitary rests right inside of it. So here's a woman who's actually enlightening people about autism, Asperger, and her name is the Grand Temple. So it's amazing to me. It's like the universe is just screaming at us. It's the hologram. Like, holla back, God, you know? Sorry.
And YOUniverse in Spanish,
Ah, there you go.
it's YOUniverse, and it's just one song. That's what it's.
There you go. Cool. See, we had the right people here at the right. Thank you, Maria. So, string theory. Even though I don't know that it's the thing, but I like the idea that strings and the universe go together. You know, just imagine that out there, beyond our hearing, is just one symphony of sound, just playing and never ceasing. Okay. String theory. However, the math works at this point, and they've been able to take the equation, work it on both sides simultaneously. In the movie, they show this. And they get this number 496, they're working something, but it winds up being on the same on the quantum side as it is on the relative side, proving that that theory, that mathematical equation works in both realms. So there's an idea that that's unifying, but there's no proof because it's dealing with something too small to prove. You can say something about you just.
Well, because we're so dualistic, we won't let it maybe.
Yeah, but there is a way. I think once you lose your duality,
Yes.
then you start you know in this group, I really believe is using probably at least 30% of their brain. Where they say the average person, they say we only use about 10% of our brain. That's 10% of your consciousness. So as you expand in consciousness, so does your awareness expand. So string theory's math works to this point. Some resist it because, like I said, it challenges. Well, for one thing, some people don't like it just because it sounds more like a philosophy than a reality. The other level is it challenges our current understanding of reality too greatly, because what it's hinting at is for string theory to be able to prove everything means that there has to be more than one dimension that we're actually living and residing in. But I like how they explain this. I've seen this before, and I really like how they describe it. So imagine multiple realities. It's hard for us to perceive that because I'm going to show you something later. But from my perspective, it's like this folding of time and space that we don't see, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. So this is a really good definition, or to give you another idea of a dimension. So I know this is small for y'all here. It'll be bigger on the YouTube. But you see these two lines holding up this light? From our perspective way back, it looks like a line, right? Okay. Here it is a little bit closer, and you can see these ants. But if you're from the ant's perspective, you see that there's actually an added dimension to that cable. It's not a single line. It's actually got a time and space that goes beyond the normal. Does that make sense? That's how our dimensions are kind of mixed in. We don't really necessarily see them because we take things for granted or advantage because we don't perceive them in right the same way. But can you see how that one single line actually has more dimensions? You see the spiraling in the cable? Mm-hmm. So it actually has another dimension to it. So the ant is able to go forward, backwards, around, and then back. So it adds another dimension to that. I'm not going to get too far into that because honestly, I don't fully understand that. So I'm not going to try to waste my time or waste your time trying to explain that. But I understand it enough that there are dimensions that are hidden from us simply because we perceive things in a limited way. It doesn't mean that it's not there. Just like chi. You know, we can imagine that energy isn't flowing in here, but if we've all pretty much in this group, everybody's played with Reiki and hands-on healing and stuff like that, we do know it's there. We can feel it. Just because it's invisible to us doesn't mean it's not there, just like the extra dimensions. In reality, what happens is that the string theory does a thing with time and space, which it crinkles it up, like a piece of paper would be a good example. So if I take a piece of paper, okay, and based on the frequency, it's gonna wad the piece of paper up in tons of different ways. When I was in high school, I was taking an architecture class, and for fun, one of the exercises is he said, wad up a piece of paper, and you're going to look and study the lines and make a structure out of that. You know, so basically you would just wad a piece of paper up. You know, nobody's going to wad. Everybody in this room is going to wad the piece of paper different. So you would study that structure and find the lines you like, and then use that to use architecture to design a structure that would be very cool, right? But that's like quantum theory. Here's the field, and it's being crunched up in a way so tiny and small that you can't perceive these little clusters. Okay, does that make sense so far?
It's like sophisticated origami.
That's the video clip I'm going to show you, Smarty. So the shape, the frequency, which are one and the same, the shape of your body, the shape of different chakras all has to do with frequency. So the shape frequency of strings fold time and space. So remember the grid here? The grid winds up more looking like this on the nodes, little more spheres, or these all wadded up at the edge here, right? But we don't perceive those because they're beyond our perception. Does that make sense so far? I can't describe this in a very easy way because it's what goes beyond our understanding. So here's the grid work, but this wadding up effect is what adds these other dimensions in that we actually are interacting with on the quantum, but not on the reality level. So we don't perceive them as readily. And there's probably a reason for that, because if we perceived all that, we'd probably be confused as hell, right? But we don't have to perceive it completely to be able to access it. So our grid goes from this to being either these, see how this expands even more? What's really interesting about the brain is the brain has all these folds, and talking about the origami, the brain has all these folds. If you actually, so here we have all these folds with the tissue. If you actually flatten out and iron all the tissue out of the brain, it's huge. And you can store a lot of information because it's all crumpled up into one space. It's small, right? And that's what the universe is doing. It's doing the same mathematics, the same thing. So these are unpredictable clusters on the general relativity. Does that make sense? So here's general relativity happening, and then there's these unpredictable clusters. We don't know what they'll do. So if we affirm something, it's not 100% sure that we're going to get it. Yeah, we can do things like we've done here in the group with EFT where we do some tapping, we clear some things out. That does increase our probability. It makes it more likely to happen, right? So it's like we increase the probability the more things we clear. But we can go further with it. So this brings me to Stephen mentioned, and this is just going to be a clip from this movie. It's a really great movie. And to me, it's a spiritual movie, even though they didn't make it out that way. It's a movie called Between the Folds. And this is a clip here on YouTube. The clip I'm going to show you is from YouTube. It's Between the Folds, and it's about all these origami people. And they're not just like somebody off the street doing origami. These are like physicists doing origami. And think about one piece of paper. What's really interesting about this, and some of these I can't show you everything because they'll yank my YouTube because I'm doing copyright infringement. But from one piece of paper, you can make a dragon that looks like a dragon without even cutting the piece of paper. That's amazing. Have you seen really detailed origami? It's not like the bird. I'm talking about a dragon.
Fabulous too.
Yeah, that's enough. But if you can make a dragon that actually has whiskers and scales and everything without cutting the piece of paper, simply folding time and space, you get this. So I'm going to show you the clip now. Is it here? This is going to be, 1 second. I got to pull in. I tried to link it in here. I didn't want to link it, so I had to do it the hard way. Pictures.
So wrinkles make really good things.
Yeah.
I like it.
So this is a clip from, and this is a YouTube clip from the movie Between the Folds. And it's really a fascinating movie. I recommend anybody watch it. So here's a little clip. You're not going to show a lot of things, but you get an idea of what they're talking about. What's interesting is you're going to hear one physicist say in here that folding a piece of paper changes its memory. It's important because we are these folds ourselves.
Memory in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
The process of making is the point of it.
So he said the process of making is just the point of it. So you're just doing it to do it. You're doing it to create.
This needs to be a kind of ballet.
Yeah, that was just simply folded paper. It's just amazing what they, watching this movie is amazing. Some of the things he's saying is like, how do they do that? It's like a piece of paper.
If anybody can copy a supposed artist, it's not art.
So he says if anybody can copy your artwork, it's not art. See this right here? One piece of paper. See this little face, the gnome, everything? When I watched in the movie, he spent like, I can't remember how long, but he wanted to make a pocket on because he makes these little gnomes out of one piece of paper. Mind you, he's not cutting anything, okay? And he wanted to make these pockets on the vest, and he spent him months to master that. He had to sit there and play with it to make the vest look like a vest, and all of a sudden a pocket pop out of nowhere.
So he refolds it and refolds it and
Yeah,
start
yeah,
over
yeah.
with another piece
I mean,
of
see, you
paper?
can see it. Yeah, exactly. See all this back here? This is like his workshop.
Okay, those
So,
are the
different ones. See, and
attempts.
these are all faces back out here with one piece of paper.
Oh my goodness.
There's no
And what's interesting, you see the between the folds and the grid work there. I think that's kind of interesting. I mean, see the right.
there's no carving in wood or in stone or knots on a rug that are going to look anything near like what pleats do when they express a line.
Lots of people talk about the reality of say an elephant in origami. You know, does it look real? Does it look like an elephant? But it's a piece of paper. You know, of course it can't look like an elephant.
I think at heart, one of the things that makes
That's one piece of paper.
us human, it's both our strength and our weakness as a need to change things. It's also the heart of the appeal of origami, exploring the surprising magic of just how far you can change that square.
Just how far you could change the square.
Only by folding.
What are the limits, the physical limits of this art form?
You put in a crease in a piece of paper, you're essentially changing the memory of that piece.
Origami is just such a great way to get your hands dirty with math. You know, it becomes your laboratory for doing mathematics.
And whenever there's a need in the industry to take a flat sheet and somehow make it smaller, there is a potential for origami to have an application.
In science,
DNA origami.
this is the most creative you can be. We are artists whether we do science or whether we build sculpture.
I'm sure the pi ratio plays a lot.
Oh, hell yeah, pi ratio. You know, when a stem grows, a leaf goes here, and you spiral up here, and it's spaced so perfectly that, what is it? If you look down upon it, it's spaced so perfectly that if sun was hitting it, everything would get sun equally. There would be 10 points upon that spiral that everything, if it didn't grow that way, this leaf, if another leaf spiraled around it, you know, as it's growing, here's a leaf and it spirals around and puts one, it blocks.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this mathematics, this beautiful mathematics consciousness that is running everything that goes by very specific patterns we all have access to, and we're all playing with this mathematics. We're all quantum physicists. There's a difference between being a blind quantum physicist and being an aware quantum physicist. So Between the Folds, it's an amazing movie. For me it was anyway. So this brings me back to this whole time and space thing, right? So time and space, because it's 3D, not 2D, right? These things are being bent and creating reality. So now let's get back on track to time and space being bent by gravity. Remember when we talked about general relativity? That gravity is simply this space being bent. Just like they're taking a piece of paper and they're bending it, folding it over and over to create something, right? So this is where it gets really interesting. This guy did a little work with Einstein, and his name is Carl Schwarzschild, and basically he's the one that developed the concept of black holes. Okay. Now, if any of y'all have seen, most people in this group have seen Nassim's work about the black holes. Black hole being this particular pattern that's not just around the black holes, but it's around planets, the galaxy, and around us even. So Schwarzschild in the 1915s, 1916 put this hypothesis of black holes bending time and space. Now we're back to bending time and space, okay? So here we have this huge mass compressed down into one single dot, and the explosion bends time and space, okay? That's basically a black hole. Here's your event horizon, and whatever gets too close to that event horizon is pulled down into the black hole. You know, that's that's like black hole physics, 0.0001. I mean that's just a very small nutshell. So there's a large gravity field that is created by that black hole. So an immense explosion can warp space-time. This warp is called a black hole. Everybody with me so far? So literally this, see, and when you look at a black hole, there's a jet going up and a jet going down, okay? And it not only does it pull in energy, it also emits energy. So this little funnel shape, doesn't look an awful lot like a chakra, is what's coming out of the top of this and out of the bottom, okay? And it creates what is known as a toroidal field, which is basically, I'm going to show you in a second, basically like a donut. And this field is around the center of our galaxy, because at the center of our galaxy there is a black hole. So scientists ask, what happens in a black hole? This is where my brain went a little freaky. But this came to me, so I'm going to share it. So maybe where this is where it gets weird.
This is where you turn into both one.
Yeah, shush. So what hit me today is that's a silly question, because we're in a black hole. We're in a black hole. That's what came to me finally, is that we are in a black hole. We're looking out in the world and go, I wonder what's in that black hole. We're in a black hole. There is a black hole at the center of our galaxy, and we are in its toroidal field. And it actually goes back to yin and yang. Yin is the night sky. Excuse me. The night. Choking myself up. The yin is the night sky with the moon. Yang is daytime with the sun. But this is a more accurate representation than the 2D yin and yang. It's actually very in-depth and it's spiraling. So at night when we sleep, it's like this, and then during the day it changes, it becomes noon, and then it fluctuates. It's always moving. But at the center of our galaxy we have a black hole pulling in, just like the womb, and then we have the white stars expanding out. It's yin and yang right there. It's a dance they make. So at the center of our galaxy is a black hole. They've all pretty much proved it at this point. And so imagine that our center of our galaxy fits right in here, and we spiral out through here. We're in the entire toroidal field, but we're tiny, tiny, tiny on the end. But in the center of our galaxy is the black hole. So some imagine how did our universe begin? Some say the Big Bang, right? So let me backtrack a little bit. In his like Schwarzschild mentioned, an immense explosion will create a black hole. So there we have the Big Bang indicating that maybe we're in a black hole. That big explosion that happened that blew everything out also went inside. So what if we're actually inside a black hole right now? And we're asking, what happens in a black hole? Well, we happen in a black hole. Creation is happening over and over and over, and it's built in, it's like nested China dolls. It goes on forever. So just a hypothesis there that we're in the black hole.
Aren't we a black hole?
Yeah, I'm getting into that. Because Nassim gets into that, us being, see this toroidal field here? This is called a toroidal field. See how this is like the upper chakra going down, and this is like the earth chakra, and then we have 7 of the chakras in between? We have this energy field, we call it our aura, around us. And this is what we bend time and space with. That's what we're about to get into. So this toroidal field that happened as a Big Bang is what bends time and space. It's around all the planets, around the stars, and it's also what happens around us. Remember going back to the video of the origami, how time and space is bent? So we're living inside a black hole that is bent time and space, and we're being made of the same thing. So it's like, if I take a piece of paper, I could fold, if I knew how to do it, I could fold literally a whole reality out of one piece of paper, large enough. Does that make sense? But our reality is even more complex than that. It's something we can't fully comprehend at this time. So I want to now bring this back home. We ourselves have a toroidal field around us. So created out of and in the image of our mother and father, we too bend space and time. We did that individually, and we do it collectively. So what happens on the planet, we're collectively bending time and space. What happens in your whatever happens in your individual life, you're bending the time and space. The thing is you've been doing it blindly. Most of everybody in this group is aware of how you're creating things, but we can even go take that further. So now we know that we're creating a reality, but maybe we need a better understanding of reality or ourselves to be able to work with that even more. So here we are. We've got our own toroidal field around our own body, and we are bending time and space. Okay? So we are already bending time and space ourselves. Here's the question. How do we do it consciously? And how much freedom do we really have to do it? Does that make sense? The answer that came to me was that you have to be at a certain level of consciousness to work with it 100%. Okay? So we get to work with it to the degree that we're conscious. We get to work with it to the degree that we can, within ourselves, unify the quantum and the general relativity. Does that make sense? Only my awareness of the two and how they may work together helps me work with them both. Does that make sense? That's oversimplifying without a math equation, but that's it. You have to understand a certain level, yeah?
Okay, is it possible that we are doing it whether we know it or not?
Oh, yes, that's a given. That's a given.
Okay.
Well, that's been going on since the beginning of time. When we become aware of it, that's when it starts to change. But now we're going to get into, remember I was pondering how much freedom we have into it and how can we create? That's where my pondering has went recently. So the question I'm really addressing here is, how do we do it consciously and how much freedom do we really have to do it? You know, a lot of people, even us expanding in this new world, new metaphysical understanding, we still talk with some old language. We still talk with some old limiting programming, whether it's from religion. I'm not saying religion's bad, but there's lots of limiting belief systems there. We're coming from a space of being limited by our awareness. Remember how when you fold something, it creates memory? Our memory is interfering with our ability to interact with reality completely. So let's go just a little. Everybody with me, kind of with that? Okay. So that has been my focus of my recent pondering. Here is what I have come up with. I'm not saying this is truth. You judge for yourself. Actually, judging may not be something you want to do, and I'll explain that in a second. But besides judging, just feel it. If it feels right, cool. If not, you can leave it. So, what the heck? So what came to me involved belief versus knowing. And this is something I've kind of pondered with back and forth. So I'm going to take it from this level. Belief versus knowing. So let's just start. So the person coming from believing, praying, asking, etc. has a smaller field. This means they have access to less quantum probability. The knowing person has a larger field, and their probability increases to predictability to inevitability. Does that make sense? Yes. Why? You're saying yes, but I want you to really get it. Remember how I said we bend time and space? See how this little person here, I'm doing like the little prayer position? Okay. This person is coming from belief and prayer and asking, and they've got, I mean, we all have this interaction that we have with the field, right? See how it's bending time and space? Now this person over here is coming from a knowing. So they even got a different posture. But the knowing bends more time and space. So imagine each one of these squares. Remember how the quantum world curls up in weird places that you can't see? So if I move more quantum field around me, what does that mean I'm getting more access to?
What you want.
More of those wadded up fields of probability. So if I have more access to probability, that increases from probability to predictability to inevitability. Does that make sense? And to me, where I am, call me crazy, is that at least where I am, is to be focusing on what's going to get me from this point to this point, which is self-mastery, which I think the masters have talked about for eons. People have done it. People have already done it. So I'm going to go from having the small field, which relates to believing, and again, this you have to take what I'm saying with your own grain of salt, or however you say that. getting my right brain, my left brain goes, and I want to go from this small field to being in this field, where when I say and I predict has more of an impact, and look at this, more gravity in the quantum space-time field, more gravity. See, now we're bringing them back into mathematics. Because the one aspect in general relativity that didn't match with the strong theory, or the strong force, the weak force, which is radiation, and electromagnetism, these four forces that are reality, is gravity didn't fit the quantum. Gravity is the more in the reality here. We live by gravity. We're stuck on the planet. but we are bending gravity all the time. So the more of a field you have, see how his gravity, this knowing, bends more time and space? He has more power. Gravity is your power. So how do you go from this to this? Yeah, Beth?
Well, also, to me, if you go back to that,
Oh.
and your question about don't we do this unknowingly, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time we're in the right picture there. On
The left
right.
picture.
No, we're in the right picture without knowing we're in the right picture, but we're asking for something, but in the back of our mind, we're there because we're going, it's not there.
Yeah, but I think you're saying that right, but let me specify the pictures. Just because based on what you said. The left side, see how he's got a little divot in here? A little divot in time and space. See how many squares he has in there?
I'm with you.
This person is the believing person. This is the one that knows what they're doing.
I'm
okay,
saying
yeah.
the same thing.
Okay.
I'm saying we think we're believing, we think we're knowing. We're using our knowing unknowingly.
Right,
Because
there you go.
we're going, but it's really not going to happen. And so we're building all this, we're crumpling all this paper unknowingly towards what we don't want.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. There is a blend of the two, and we're about to go into that in a second. But here, you're coming from a weaker perception where it's about believing, praying, almost like pleading. You know, I was raised Baptist, and I'm not down on religion, but it's unfortunate that, like I was listening to something on the radio the other day, and it's a church, I can't remember where it is exactly, but they're talking about the pastor meets the person, and the guy says, I'm a sinner from Burke Burnett. It's like we're taught that we're sinners, low lives. This is on the radio, not something I'm making up. I'm a sinner from Burke Burnett, and they laughed about it. That's the whole commercial. You've probably already heard it. But we have these patterns within our field that are making us weak. So here we are coming from believing I have to get God's graces to give me something. I have to grovel back to God to get what I need. A knowing is you're a son or a daughter of God. There's no groveling, okay? That person has the space to actually impact more of reality. See the space in here? Than this person, okay? And my thing is, how do you get from here to here? And the unified theory is how we do it. So but you're right, that's what you're talking about. Yeah, we can sometimes be pushing in reality and wadding these pieces of paper up unknowingly in a direction we don't want to, which goes back to our programming. And now we're going to play.
We know what we don't want. We just don't know what we want.
Yeah, but unknowingly, it's like our unconscious thoughts. Like I'm working to please others, so I'll get love. It's like childhood programming that kicks over, and you are shaping your reality all the time. So let's just delve into this. So this is actually a more accurate picture, because it's not just you're separate from it. You're actually woven of the same stuff, right? Can you see how that's totally 3D? You're enmeshed in it. It's not just you. I mean, it's not just you separate from it. You are it. You are the field, okay? So the bigger your field is, the more of an impact, the more gravity you have on a particular thing. Let me make sure I read something, because there's something I didn't have time to... good enough. So both people are warping time and space. However, one has much more impact on the field. Their thoughts, crown, visuals, third eye, the words, throat chakra, feelings, heart, and actions have more gravity. If you know something, you have more gravity in the field, in time, space. Does that make sense? If you're like, okay, God, I'm wanting this, I'm asking your permission, please help me. That's different. That's not saying that. I'm not saying that that's bad, but somebody coming from, I know this is where my heart is leading me, this is where I'm going to go, I know it. It shall happen, period. It's like Jesus healing people. He didn't go, okay, Jesus, please help me heal this. No. He commanded it, right? That's why I said Jesus had big cojones. So we have this huge field that we're in. We're not separate from it. We're in it. Okay, we're like in the matrix, if you will. So, I'm going to show you a video I made. And the interesting thing is the video came upside down. Dang it! So this will maybe alter your consciousness too.
We'll stand on our hands.
And I couldn't turn it around. It's frustrating, but I'm going to try to describe something with the salt and pepper.
So this person here is coming from...
Another way to look at it. Another way to look.
If you're dizzy, though. Okay, so this is, I call it salt and pepper. So so the white salt is the person of the believing system. Their field is smaller. Are you with me so far? Okay, because it's upside down. I don't want you to be completely lost. Their field is smaller. The knowing person has a much larger field. With me? Okay. Let me move this. We'll start over. So this person here is coming from believing, which is like praying for, hoping for, kind of a religious aspect. This person's coming from knowing. So let's say they're going to create something. Now remember that the person who is believing has a smaller magnetic field, okay? And the important part about that is that this quantum field that's vibrating with all these possibilities, they only have access to certain... Does that make sense? If we're enmeshed in a reality that has quantum physics all wrapped up in it, if I have a small field, I'm getting less access to that. Does that make sense? If my field is strong, hell, I've opened up vast opportunity to myself. But you can only do that by doing a few things. You've got to do the few things first, or you don't have access. You don't expand your field. Because if I have a field here, I have access to what's here. I even feel a little cramped instead of blowing it out. So, out of that field. This person with knowing has a much larger field, which means there's more probability from the quantum field within it. Does that make sense? Okay. So if this person, so these two people are going to create the exact same thing. This one's coming from believing, hoping, praying. Daddy will help me, God will help me. This person's coming from a knowing. I will do this. So this person having a larger field lines things up way ahead of time. So here's this person. Does that make sense? It's like the magnetism in this person is so strong that they're lining things up months and weeks ahead of time because their field is expanding that far, right? The other person with a smaller field is praying for things to happen. So every once in a while, poof, something pops up in reality, as opposed to the path being clear. It's like poof, oh, I go this way. Poof, oh, I go, And that's what I try to say with this little salt pepper thing. We got it lined up, and this person here over in probability, let me find something here to be probability. Probability will be butter. So this person has a smaller field, waiting for something to happen, and boom, here comes the first thing. So that first thing is what we call synchronicity. Okay. So to change that to a different language, this little thing that pops up, because you're creating your synchronicity. You get it? You're creating the synchronicity that happens in your life. This person has already lined up a bunch of synchronicities that they just walk right through. This person is waiting for the universe to show up with synchronicity. This person's made the synchronicity happen. Okay? So poof, there's this person. See how it's also disconnected from the person? How I made that other thing very solid and connected to the person to begin with? Okay, so they start moving. This person is on their trail. This person gets to this level. And then... See, then you lose track because you got to where the synchronicity took you, but then you don't know what's the next step to take. You're waiting for God or the universe to show you. Has to wait for the next probability to show up because they're waiting and hoping and praying for things to happen. This person's knowing. They're already halfway to the thing. Then finally something comes into their small field and go, oh, I go here. And then they keep waiting for the next thing. And this person's already reached their goal 2 years before this person has. That make sense? Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing right now. We're playing both of these realms, okay? Because we're trying to make the leap. So we play a little bit of this, we play a little bit of this sometimes. When you're playing this, you know. Because you're like, this is going to happen, and you know it's going to happen, and you act like it's going to happen. This, it's like you pray for it, you're wishing for it, and you're not for sure. And you don't have that much power. You can't pull things to you unless you freaking know. You say this is going to happen. Okay. That's salt and pepper. So here we are from blee, blee, pray, pray, please God, save me, and to I know I'm the master. So how do we jump from believing to knowing? If you are here or are watching this, you have already started. The problem is that we tried to make the leap into knowing, and we fell somewhere in between. This is where we are right now. We're playing both worlds. We're like, okay, because we're still kind of playing with concepts of praying and asking for permission. And then part of us is trying to go, okay, all these things I'm reading is I can create the reality I want. But then there's part of us, we're schizophrenic. We're schizophrenic. By definition, every human is schizophrenic. Okay? If you talk to yourself and argue about little bitty things, you're schizophrenic. Sorry. So we have to become unified. Unifying yourself is the key to the unified field theory. Does that make sense? You have to unify yourself. So what do we have to do to make that jump? What do you think?
We have to meditate. Exercise and diet.
That's true to a certain degree. That is because, they talk about meditation being a golden chain. You have to, it's going to get you, let's say it this way. I have to walk the path to get to where I want to go. but then eventually the path will be restrictive, because that means I have to follow a certain thing. If meditation becomes the golden chain, because I have to use it to break free. So it's something we start. It's something we start, but ideally we finally break free from the golden chain. And we break free from that by becoming more empowered by who we are, not by what the world wants to tell us who we are. Okay? So, this all brings us back to the search for the unified field theory. See the U and again? Unified field theory. Nassim's black hole theory stuff, I love that. You know, the name of this group is Black Hole Heart. Meaning, I use whole as in WHOL. Black hole, your singularity, the singularity to your black hole is in your heart. And the interesting thing about the black hole is that small compacted energy has access to absolutely everything else. So when you say like namaste, namaste meaning I honor that place in you, that when you're in that place in you and I'm in that place in me, we are one, it means that singularity, that heart space. And Nassim's work is really good around that. You know, we've all kind of watched some of his stuff. We're going to take it a little bit further than that. The unified field theory. So remember, time and space gets warped by that explosion that happens. Here's the event horizon. The event horizon is your upper chakra. The events that show up on the horizon of your life. Get it? See how the plays on words? The event horizon. The events that show up on the horizon of your life is what you're bending time and space to. That's what shows up. You're creating the synchronicities, right? So, and that singularity ends in here. So the singularity with all the power of the black hole is in the heart of you. Every one of us has it. And in the chakra, you see the upper and the lower pyramid here, the Star of David. The Star of David, you know, this cryptic information has been hidden for thousands of years in different texts and things like that. The Star of David, the pyramid going up, which is you basically have 7 major chakras. The lower chakras are masculine, the upper are feminine, but they're partners. They have to overlap to make it work. You don't have the power unless your chakras actually overlap. So it's like an hourglass. They're pointing to each other, but they're not overlapped. So masculine is about survival, root chakra, sexuality, and power. Females are, let's talk about it. They're intuitive, and they have a broader understanding of reality, where men are like, I have one thing on my mind, survival, sex, and power. Women are like, let's talk about it. Ooh, I want to talk. You know, so there's the struggle of male and female right there. But really, they are yin and yang of one another. You do not have power unless you speak up for yourself. You don't speak up for yourself unless you have power. Your intuition comes from your creativity. Just like writer's block, that your intuition's blocked. You don't have a strong connection to God, Father, unless you have a strong connection to the earth, Mother. That is the blending. And when those blend, when those 2 fingers pointing towards each other cross and you get the Star of David, that's when the marriage begins. Marriage again, and play on words, marry age. It's like the thousands years of peace appear. But it's not going to happen in the world until it happens in us, because we're bending time and space collectively. Do you get it? It's not going to happen out there until we do it. So we're going to push on reality and try to make it happen. It ain't going to happen until we do it. Or you're not going to be in the reality that it's happening. Does that make sense? You will not be in the reality that's peaceful until you become it first. You have to unify yourself to what you want to experience, or it's never going to happen. It's got to be in your unconscious, subconscious unified. Every one of your chakras aligned with it. All of your Dantians, lower, middle, all one. You are one focus, singular. That's when you create your reality. That's when you experience it. So here we are looking at the world. All of us have been through this particular phase. Oh, the world is at war and we got to bring peace and solve everybody. But you know what? You begin to interfere with free will. Everybody here is on a different grade. You don't look at the 3rd graders and say stop fighting. Maybe that's something they need to go through. I'm going to focus on the reality I want to create, and the ones that are with me, we align magnetically, just like iron filings. We come together. I pull that quantum to me, even if it's on another dimension or another reality. If that's too far-fetched for you, to me, it actually goes to that level. So the singularity, and look at the word singularity. It's singing you. It's singing who you are. Okay. And when Laura came in, I used this because she said, it's like she was at church today and she heard them sing, you know, there's a song in church, blessed be your name, or what is that? How is it?
Blessed be your name.
Blessed be your name. And it came to her like a flash, like it was like, it's all of our names. It's, you know, it's like God saying, blessed is your name. You know, we're saying that to God, but really it's God saying that to us, right? Blessed be your name. You are a son and daughter of God, period. And that power comes when you freaking own that.
The picture I got in my head when you were talking about that was like you've got the plane and you've got several different singularities of all these different people, and as they get closer to each other, they kind of become one bigger singularity.
Exactly. That's what's happening on the planet.
Yeah, it's like as your singularity gets bigger, and if somebody's close to you or has the same thoughts or whatever, then you both kind of come together and you create this bigger singularity, and then kind of.
Yeah, because imagine you're trying to create a new job or a new something. Okay, if you've got this doubt that you're going to be able to do it, this weak system that says I have to pray for it and believe in God, please help me, and because I'm a sinner and I suck, and that type of thing. Your field is so strong that the probability that what you need, what if what you need is just outside of what you think is possible? How about you expand your awareness and know that you deserve everything good in life, and you expand and boom, oh, there's that person was there all along. You just never saw them. They were never able to come into your field because you were a pathetic field, okay? So we have to bridge that. So the unified field theory is the singularity is you. You singular focus your being. You sing you. That's it. Nobody else is dictating who you are, what you are. You become that, and you align with it. If you want to experience peace in the world, you become it. You don't try to change the world, because you know what? There's many different multiple realities, and somebody maybe is in 3rd grade. They need to learn to, be hit to learn power. You understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah, I would look at that and go, okay, I prefer not to live that way, but you know what? We all have different ways of growing and learning, and sometimes that we've all gone through different levels, right? Imagine, the other day I was sitting at a restaurant, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, oh, here's a perfect example. Here's a little toddler child in the seat, right? Now, how would I go up to the child and say, I'm going to save you. I'm going to save you a lifetime of struggle and worry. I'm going to give you the secret to everything. I'm going to tell the child all this right here, right now, right? Would the child get it? Well, hell no. So the people that are out there fighting each other that you want to go out and save because you're mispercepting what's happening in reality because you're judging it, then you are actually tying yourself to that reality. If you want to experience it, you unbuckle yourself from it and you singularly focus on what the hell you want, and that's all you focus on. Or you'll never make it out of this reality, the one that you were judging. Does that make sense? Sorry.
Can you tell me the difference between judging and being aware?
Okay. There is a difference between, thank you, Marianne. There is a difference between judging. And, we'll use the obvious because sexuality, race, okay? When you look at a particular race and you already have a preconceived idea of what that person's like, what they're doing, you judge them as being sinners and whatever, that is a judgment. Awareness is different because awareness is like, I see what's happening, but I don't judge it. In other words, if I see these two people fighting, it's not that, okay, let me put this in here because I know somebody's going to jump on this. If I see something happening negative, I'm not just going to sit by and go, okay, that's what they needed. Sometimes I go, my heart tells me to do something because that's part of even my growth.
That's discernment.
Yeah, that's discernment. That's the awareness. It's a lot different than judgment, okay? Because observation. Let me give an example. Y'all know I don't watch TV anymore, and I rarely watch. I mean, I used to be a big horror movie buff, and then now I know when I put that stuff in my head, weird things happen in my reality, so I try not to do it. But Katie turned me on to a quote-unquote horror movie, which I judged as being something that didn't have anything for me. But you know what? My judgment, if I didn't listen to her and I stuck with my judgment, because I judge horror movies to be bad, if I'd stayed with my judgment, I would have missed the message in the movie, right? So your judgments lock you into this confined reality. So non-judgment has to be the first state to owning your singularity. You're looking at the world and say peace has to be here, that's your fucking judgment. People are here learning different things and you've got to untie from it. Oh, the government's doing this, the government's doing that. Untie from it, untie from it, untie from it. I've said that over and over, but I have to force that point because you're tying yourself to it. When you judge it, you look at it, and you think you've got to change it. Because you know what? You can't go up to a 3-year-old and tell them that they need to change that. If somebody's in a relationship that you want to pull them out of, they cannot get it until they're ready. And you cannot change that. That is your judgment. Your judgment. Right? And you're actually hurting the situation, not helping. So you got to come to a place where you're non-judgmental, you're strong in your knowing field, and the people that come into your field, they know it. Because they're ready to shift. Because if they're not ready to shift, they're not going to be anywhere near you.
That's a tough question. I've asked you that question before.
So in my opinion of what discernment versus judgment is in a condensed version, not quite as detailed, is like discernment is deciding what's right for you in a situation.
Right.
and judgment is deciding what's right for others.
And that's perfect, Stephen.
Okay.
Stephen summed up my blah, blah, blah. That's perfect. Judgment is what you're perceiving somebody else should be doing. And sometimes we judge what? What else do we judge? We judge ourselves. That's what keeps you out of integrity. Integrity is the key to singularity. If you're not integrous with yourself, you disintegrate. You literally fall apart. Integrity, disintegrate. Integrate, disintegrate, right? When you're not integrating yourself, you're falling apart. When you fall apart, you have absolutely no power. The more you're falling apart, you have no power. So when your heart's saying, hey, I want you to do this, and you're like, it's like you've cracked yourself, okay? So we got to stop this whole judgment thing of other people and what they're doing. Sometimes you do jump in, okay? We also got to drop the judgment of ourselves.
Well, and the way I came up with that was like, we were like, well, you're judging me because of, say I don't want to hang out with somebody because they smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, you're judging me because you smoke. No, you're judging yourself because you smoke. I'm just judging whether or not I want to be around.
Yeah, you're discerning whether the smoke is good for you or not.
Yeah,
and that's your right.
I still think you're fine, and it's your right to smoke.
Right.
You can do whatever the hell you want to. I just don't want to be around it.
Right. And the thing about that, what Stephen's talking about, and this is why it's so important to get that I'm feeling so forceful to say this because I know myself and we all get caught up in this judgment cycle, even though we don't understand it's judgment. We all get caught up in it. And it is simply that all of a sudden, before we know it, we are judging some other situation or something, and we are, whenever you get the need that you got to feel like you got to change something around somebody else, you're judging. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at somebody's sexuality and say, oh, this is how sexuality looks, that's a judgment. Oh, the planet should be peaceful. They should have gotten that by now. That's a judgment. Everybody's in a different grade. This is not just like, okay, we're all college graduates on this planet. Hell no. There is the worst nightmare on this reality and the most blissful experience in this reality, all in the same freaking place. All you got to do is tune yourself to what you want. Don't try to take anybody with you, because more than likely you're not taking anybody with you, unless you have a partner that's aware to the level you are. So you've got to do it for yourself. Okay? That is your self-mastery. So that's why I think a lot of the masters talked in cryptic language, because how do you explain some of those things to people? You got to get them to try to get it themselves. So that singularity comes back to yourself. Here's that black hole. This is not the best picture, but that singularity is when you've married yourself within yourself. The medical staff, all that represents the same thing. You know the wings on the medical staff is your corpus callosum? Corpus callosum. I always say that wrong. Those wings are the fibers in your brains that connect your left and right brain. That does not open until you get past the third eye. Okay? The three eyes. You've heard of the third eye, right? And the forehead being one of them, the pituitary. What chakra is the third eye related to? No, what chakra number? Sixth, right? Okay. When you are divided, it's 6, 6, 6. What is that? The number of the beast. When you are coming from a split consciousness, we all of us, beastly create negative things. Once the eye unifies into one single focus, that's when you actually bloom. You are no longer unconscious and subconscious and conscious. You are one. Your left and right brain are completely connected with those fibers. And going back to numerology, 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals what? 6 times 3 is what? 18. 8 plus 1 is 9. It's the number of completion. We have to go through the split mind, heal our duality, which is kind of what we're talking about tonight. It's that matching the quantum mechanics with the theory of relativity. And we only do it in ourselves. We have to do it here. It's not about making somebody else get it, because who are you to freaking say what I'm going to do? Or what I have no right to say. That's why when I offer what I share, I try to come from a place of like, I'm crazy. For me, it's okay. For you, it may not fit into your reality, and that's fine. So it's about balancing the Dantians. In Qigong, it's about balancing these centers. Because in Qigong, we have 3 centers. Your lower Dantian, your middle, and your upper. And they're separated by the diaphragm. So your physical Dantian is separated from your heart. And here it closes off. Your heart is separated from your mind. But there are practices where you actually make these 3 separate things one thing. That's unification. That's unified field theory. Is no longer does your mind betray your heart. No longer does your body do actions that betray your mind. You've got to become one being. And that only happens through, Donna, with the meditation, the focused effort of reining your freaking self in. Taking control. It's self-mastery. It's not about mastering the entire universe, because you got to do it your freaking self, or you're not going to get anywhere. I mean, you're actually going to kick. Okay, imagine here, you're right on the edge of really understanding something, and your judgment has you wanting to save the world. Okay? And then you're locked into that reality, and you can't move into the reality that you need to, because, but here, I want to bring this home, is like, you may want to save other people. I did it one time. And I want to help others, but I know I can't save them anymore. I can help others, but you can't go to that person and say, here's what you need to do. Because they've got to be ready. They've got to be the ones seeking, just like we have to. So you got to balance those particular things out. So let me get a little further into that. I have blabbered on and on. Okay, but here's the thing. Have you made the grades? Have you done the homework, and have you done what you need to get to this level of what I'm talking to, of understanding it? And it's like this. Have you done the work? Or are you trying to jump from 9 to 11? 11 being the master number. Let's say there's 11 levels here, okay? And if you're wondering why 9/11 is on there, there is some conspiracy theory about that and Freemasons and 9/11 and stuff like that. And I'm not going to go too deep into that because that's not going to be part of my reality. But there are people that want to jump from one level of understanding to another. So if you go 9 to 11, what you skipping? 10. 10. So 1 through 9, what repeats in numerology once you get past 9? What is the number? 1. You know what that 1 is? Self-mastery. Not control of other people, not taking other people's power. You simply control yourself. That 10 becomes 11. You know why 11 is the master number? What do you have? If you look at just 1 and 1, what do you have?
2.
2. 2 what? 2 what? 2 individuals. You become what you were meant to become. A powerful individual in reality. Not tied to something, but a partner with. Does that make sense? So if you try to jump your self-mastery, you're screwed. And we even do it in the New Age. We try to skip certain steps. You've got to take control of who you are, take control of your chakras, your energy, whatever path that is for you, and bring yourself back to unity. I mean, the Freemasons knew it. Here you have a square pointing up and then a compass pointing down. If you put a line across that, you get the Star of David. See how if you put a line across that, you get the Star of David, the symbol? G spot, that's the God spot in the center. And a square is masculine, okay? And the compass makes curves. It's the yin and the yang right there. A lot of information just in that one symbol. But it was infiltrated, so to speak. Oh, I'm not going to get it out. Forget I said that. Yeah. So let me go back. Let me just bring it back to this. There are grades. There are grades in reality, and you have to go through them to proceed to the next level. I can't tell the 4th grader, here's the magic bullet. Here's the secret to getting past all the other grades, because they can't use it. I can't go here. Or let's say I knew quantum mechanics or math, quantum math. Say I knew that, and I was like, I'm gonna visit myself in the past when I'm doing algebra. I won't get it. I won't, even if it's myself, I couldn't do it, right? So once you get to a certain level and you're done with all the games and you realize that it all comes back to you and only you, and you're the only one that you're going to save ever, then you have to start working on yourself, not trying to save the planet, because if you're saving the planet, you're locked into the quantum field that makes you stay there. Period. You've got to get out of that. You've got to break it.
Sounds like Prime Directive in Star Trek.
Oh yeah, you get to a certain level, you don't mess around with people that right? So think about it.
You don't try to give them technology that they're not ready for.
Right, or bring peace to a planet that maybe they need to grow through that. So, how many times do we do that? We watch the news and we allow that to alter our perception. It pulls our energy into the quantum field that the news program's creating. You are being pulled into all these different fields all the time. You've got to be so knowing that you are like solid rock. And here's the thing, when you're solid rock, instead of believing and you're waiting for the world to give you signals and God to help you and all this, you're all over the place. It's like a spinning top that has no direction, okay? When you're knowing, imagine if you're so knowing and you have this huge field that you're really not even moving. You have such a magnetic field that, like the black hole, you're pulling everything to you. You do not move. That's the kind of field you want. Does that make sense? You're not like...
So effectively, I am the center of the universe.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. But just having that knowing doesn't do anything unless you know how to pray. So if you haven't learned to stop judging, you will be locked into a space-time. Does that make sense? Here's this folded up time and space that says this is war, and if you're judging that, you're there. You're not going to get out of it. Does that make sense? And that's very tempting for us. So it is, but it goes even beyond that. It goes with whatever you're letting happen. So have you made the grade? Non-judgmental is one of the first things you got to get to. And think about this. Buddha, and I've mentioned this before, Buddha came in, and what Buddha was teaching was simply awareness, being aware of your thoughts and feelings. Christ came in, and what did Christ bring in? What did he bring in? Buddha was the consciousness. Christ brought in the heart. And Christ was non-judgmental. And in Revelations, Christ is the only one that can unlock the 7 seals on the Torah. Remember this toroidal field I'm talking about? Those 7 seals are your chakra. That Torah that's in the Revelations is your field. You cannot unlock your complete power unless you're of Christ consciousness, which is non-judgmental. You're conscious in the moment, you're aware, you're not judging, you're open. And reality changes around you without any effort. Healing like that. Here we're playing around. Dum, dum, dum. I am no longer dum, dum. And and the joke I've made before is like, Jesus is tapping on somebody and doing some healing because, okay, I'm going to be back tomorrow, okay? Stay on your mat. No, Jesus said, freaking get up. So to move into that realm, though, you've got to freaking know. You can't go, okay, am I kind of powerful? I kind of believe. I kind of hope I am. No. You want to know. Then knowing is what changes. That's what jumps you from creating to continually, predictably, and inevitably changing your life is you have to know. And you don't know for anybody else. You don't know for anybody else. I don't know for anybody of you in this room what is right for you. You only freaking know. And you've got to be the one that taps into it. My work is to help and open people up, but you've got to do the really hard work. All I do is like slap people around and try to wake them up. Then you got to get out of bed and do something. So, non-judgment. Judgment is everywhere. It controls or tries to control all aspects of our life. It's on the TV, it's in religion, it's everywhere. If you watch something and you get pulled into it, it's like, here you are, that top. It's like you get pulled into this quantum field that you may not want to be into. You've got to be so bedrock in yourself that whatever happens, whatever negativity comes to you, you transform. Buddha and Christ were transparent. Negative things came through them and they transformed them. It wasn't like they had to go, ugh. You're not like, oh no, war. That's horrible. It's just like you're in a place that's like a calm presence. And your presence is large and powerful. And whatever comes into your field is transformed. No effort, no big, ooh, look at me, look what I did. It's just you are it, period. So, what happens is, what you do, so the controlling thing is they try to control what you do, who you have sex with, what you eat, what you think, what you feel, etc., etc. So have you made the grade? Once you learn to be non-judgmental, which is just one of the aspects, the less you interfere in anyone else's life. Does that make sense? Because really, if it's all about free will, if I'm judging what's going on, aren't I really trying to interfere with somebody else's learning? It's not my deal. But it's very tempting for us that are kind of moving out of this other level. Because once you get past this level here of awareness where you feel like, okay, it's me, I'm doing this to myself, I'm helping co-create here, I'm going to disconnect. I'm going to disconnect my creative power from the things I don't want to create. You don't keep plugged into them. If you judge something, you're staying plugged into that reality, and you're just as much as creating it as helping it. Does that make sense? Stop thinking about what you don't want to see or create. You got to unplug yourself, period. That's only the way you're going to get free. So once you learn to be non-judgmental, the less you interfere. But people will come your way, but you don't have to. In other words, things start coming to you, and then you just react to what shows up because you're not trying to do anything. The effort is gone. In Taoism, they talk about this empty aspect of doing things where there's no effort, but everything gets done. That's it. You're in that space of when things are happening, it's like you're doing nothing. You're like going along your life, but your field is so strong and the things you come in contact with and what you're sharing are changing things left and right. But you're not having to effort anymore. It's because your field is strong enough to change anything around it, not the other way around. And like we watch TV, hear about this happening, we wonder why we're dizzy, why we're sick to our stomachs, why we're not happy. I wanted to have more pictures in there, but okay, I guess the secret, unified. You unified within yourself. You're single focused within yourself, no matter what's happening. Which one of the main keys to that is non-judgmental. You're not interfering in anybody else's life unless they ask for your help. Or if I was in a scene and I saw something being done to somebody that my heart, no, I would step in. But it's not about me coming from a judgmental state. There's a Zen, I guess you call it a story, where this martial arts teacher was killed. So he went on a They always wanted to avenge the death of their teacher. So he went on a path to avenge kill the person that killed his teacher. So he spent years tracking this person down, and he finally tracks the person down. And the guy says something or does something, and the warrior that went to go avenge his master's death gets angry. He pulls his sword, it's about to kill him, and he gets angry. And in his anger, he sheathes the sword and leaves. And the message behind that is that coming from the wrong space would create the wrong thing. So when we're coming from negative space of anger, fear, whatever, we don't want to be coming from that and creating reality. You've got to start disconnecting from things, not carrying it all the way forward, even if you think you were supposed to be doing that. So it's about owning your own energy. And that's what your qigonging, your tai chiing is, your emotions, your mental, not just your physical body. And there's lots of ways to do that. Meditation, exercising, but just life in itself will teach you, if you're open to realizing that whatever you think, you are feeding. You're tying yourself to that quantum space-time reality. So if you don't want to have that reality, which means if I'm looking at war, if I judge it, I'm choosing to be a part of that. Does that make sense? It ties me to it. I become just like this empty slate.
It's like thoughts become things.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever you.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, Tom. Is like, that's the basic truth. Is whatever you think happens. So, and other people out there trying to create certain things to happen, right? So it's like I always think about humans. Like this is in the movie Matrix. I think about humans like, the solar panel. You attach all these car batteries together. It's kind of like us. Each one of us has a certain amount of charge. So people are wanting to create certain realities or certain experiences, and they're trying to tie us all together. And they're tying us all together with fear and things like that. But once you know who you really are, and you stick to your own power, no one's going to siphon any of your power. And the true thing about that is you've become powerful. That's when you go back to this level of, see, you're never going to get to a mastery level until you own your own power minus anybody else. Anything else, no matter what people say, do, you go back to 1. You've gone the journey from 1 to 9, now it's back to yourself, and then you master yourself, you are then 2. You and your father, whether your daughter or son, are now in the creation together, experiencing together. You're not separate from. But you're not going to get there unless you do the work to unify yourself, which becomes you become one being. You become who you are in your heart, not what everybody's told you in the reality. So it's a way of reprogramming, like what Tom does with hypnotism and stuff like that. There's lots of ways of addressing, clearing those things that keep you from being that. And that's just one aspect. Programs are what I call programs, the things that we learned in childhood are just one aspect of that. But bottom line is you have to unify yourself. And it's like, so if you want to create something, you've got to think the same thoughts, visualize, say the same words out loud inside your head, align your heart, your intent, your feelings, your creativity, and down into the earth. So here you are, say you're trying to create something. Like, I want a new job. And you've been playing with the movie The Secret. You've been playing with The Secret, so you're doing the visualization. You're visualizing, you're feeling good, and you've sat down for 10 minutes and you've put energy into creating it. And then the next day, a thought pops into your head and goes, oh, that's never going to happen for me. What have you done? You've disintegrated. You've unintegrated yourself. So that's your work right there. Life is giving your work right in your face. You keep aligning yourself with what you want and forget what everything else is saying around you.
Sometimes somebody else will say something and they'll disintegrate.
Oh, exactly. Very good point. Like sometimes I find it, I just kind of knew this early in life before all this metaphysical stuff. But whenever I wanted to create something, I usually don't tell anybody. Yeah, exactly. But I didn't really know that at the time what that was. But imagine, let's say, the economy's. I'm not even going to say that. But let's say this person goes, tells a friend, I'm really drawn to open a cupcake shop, but they're telling somebody with excitement. My heart says I want to open a cupcake shop. I'm really excited about this. And the friend goes, the economy's not so good right now. What had happened? Poof. But if you're in knowing, but here's the difference. If you're in knowing, would that waver you? That's when you know you're in mastery. Is no matter what the world says to you, like a mast in a ship, you say planted. So if whenever you're doing this, it tells you that's your feedback. You're not in your mastery yet. You need more work. You've got work to do. Does that make sense? Anybody pull you off center? That's your signal. get back to your center. And you got to do it as fast as you can. Don't let days go by, weeks go by, blah, blah, blah. You know.
Or whenever you tell the one person that you know is going to poo-poo the idea, you know, it's like, unconsciously, you're like, you know, that very worst person to tell that to.
Yeah.
I deal with a lot of negative emotions that have been repressed, pushed down, and they don't disappear. They will come out in your body. Your thoughts affect your body. Everything. It's like this going down the road and a song comes on, and man, you're in that old car with your best girl, and football game or whatever was in your life, but it just reminds you of all that. And so your thoughts create. And some people think all your thoughts affect your body.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about here before. Is that what most people get is like they're like in their conscious mind. Your conscious mind being what you're aware of. You're like saying, "I'm wealthy and wise," but creation operates off of your unconscious and your conscious. So if you've got saying, "I'm wealthy and wise" with your conscious mind, but you have old programs or old things saying like, "I have to work really hard to make a living," the collective of those is what you get. So you may get 50% of what you want because that's. And what Tom said is about right about the body, because we've studied the body a lot. So that's what I love, is that the body is the mirror to what's going on in your head that's out of whack. It's telling you we're off center, because basically you look at somebody like the right shoulders, responsibility, masculine, the hip, moving, all these things are just in your face telling you what's going on. If you look at that, it tells you where you're off center. And the whole thing, all I'm saying with all of this, is to bridge, bottom line, to sum all this up, to bridge being able to reach into the quantum field and pull out infinite possibility and pull it into what we call reality, the relative realm that we're in, to be able to reach in the quantum field, pull out probability and make it an inevitability. The ability to do that means you have to be so solid in yourself that nothing shakes your ground. Nothing shakes your foundation. You have to be unified. You are the unified theory. Until that happens, it ain't going to happen. You're going to get a certain degree, like, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
But who can just, you know, make everything that they want to happen, you know? I mean, that'd be great to be able to...
Well, that's what we're
That's what I'm talking about. Is the reason that's the reason that's not happening is because of that, because of the wish-washy. But all I'm saying is, for me, what we've been doing in the group with the tapping and stuff like that, for me to go to the next level, to where I can have consistent, predictable, inevitable, positive results, I myself have much work on my field to change it to the point where I can experience that. And what I'm saying to you is, if you want to have more consistent creativity, inevitable things happen, you have to work on yourself.
There's a path.
Yeah. And the path is being true to who you are. Your singularity is your heart chakra, your center. Sing who you are and tune out everything else. Get rid of all the other stations. We're like this huge car radio that just doesn't have like 6 buttons. We have like thousands of buttons. Daddy says, "You're stupid." Shh, recorded. That station's like stuck. So like Tom said, out of the blue, you're driving along, you hear a song or somebody says something, and you may not know it, but in your unconscious mind, it's tied to your daddy telling you you're stupid, sets you off, and you're off for days. You want to go in there and not just reprogram all the buttons, you rip all the buttons off. And you go, one button, that's my freaking button, and nobody else is pushing it. and nobody's adding any preset buttons. I'm driving my car, and when I drive my car, it's my station, right? So that'd be the summary. If you want to consistently reach into the quantum field and pull out what you want with predictability, inevitability, you have to be true in yourself, no doubting, no believing, because believing is weaker than knowing. It is, okay? Believing is in the realm of like religion, where you're hoping, praying, like, "God, please heal me," as opposed to, "No, I will heal from this. I'm not asking permission, I will heal. And I'm going to change it because that's my field."
The beliefs make up part of who we are. I mean, and when we're young, beliefs are given to us. You know, the beliefs of people that we look up to. And of course, if you've got dysfunctional people around you,
none of us have dysfunctional people.
That's what we've worked on in here for years. Is how do we get down to that viral programming and pull it out? It's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, it's like we still have to work on it. Like I said, there's tons of different paths to doing that, therapies and things like that. You still have to do that part, but all I'm saying is bring in the awareness that it's simply about you being solidified within yourself. Wherever you're wavering, whatever it is in your reality that's pushing you this way and that way, toppling you like a top, and you're not coming from a knowing, then you know you've got work to do. You've got to come back to yourself, no one else. You're not changing the world, you're changing yourself. You're only going to get out of here with one person, one consciousness, and that's yours, period. Only your own consciousness is what you're getting out of here with. And if you want to be changed and transformed, you have to change your own.
That's great, because I think you're saying is that if you're wavering or any of that sort of stuff, that at least if you're aware that knowing is where you want to be, that you can always come back to that line, you know, and so that's great because you're just opening up, you know, to where you just make that your belief.
Right, and it's like you know, setting a course with a boat or a plane. It's like, you know, we're going to deviate. I mean, as soon as we walk out of here, we're going to deviate, you know what I mean? But like Tom was saying, is you're aware of the course that you're trying to set to be, and to integrate, this is what I want for myself. I want to be completely integrated within my consciousness, my heart, my physical body. So, because here's the thing, is reality is woven together. Yin and yang are together. There is no such thing in my reality where there's a separate spiritual realm anymore. We are in it. It's woven into this. So I want my spirituality woven into my being, not perceivingly separate from. And it only comes into me. It only comes into me when I've unified that. That's when your power comes home. That's when you open up that's when you open up the Torah and Spirit lives in you. But you've got to align that yourself. I guess that was it.
All right.
Are we tapping Thursday?
Thursday, yeah, we have group Thursday. We're doing the tapping thing that we were going to do tonight, but we'll do Thursday.
I think it's in you already. It's always there.
Yeah, but it's just about,
It's waking
you know.
up to the fact that it is there and it's at your disposal.
Kind of hardwired in first.
Yeah, it's you know, yeah, we're folded into this reality. Remember, the folds are the memory. So it's like you know, my term for that is you know, going back to like biblical terms, it's like they ate from the poisonous apple, and since then, our parents ate from their parents. It's like all we do is we pass down the poisonous apple. Same limited perceptions and beliefs, and there are people on the edge trying to change that, which we're in this group trying to change that. But there still has that same feeding. But the thing is, you don't. All I'm trying to say with this tonight is don't get caught up in trying to change anybody else's perception. Like, you know, I went through this phase where I wanted to like help everybody. I remember finding Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now, and there's one picture. There's a picture place in Ram Dass's book where you open up and there's this hippie guy running down through the church pews. Says, I got information for you, but they're not going to listen to him. You know? so it's kind of like once you have this realization that yeah, there's more going on. You want to tell everybody, but then once you realize only the individual can do it, then you don't go so much out as you go in, and you create a field that whoever comes in contact with you. Because here's the thing, if you lived your life as strongly as an empowered being would be, people will come to you. You don't have to go knocking on somebody's door. They'll go, what the hell are you doing? That's the change. You have to be the example, not talk about it. That's something I have to work on. So basically what I've did today is talk about something that I have to work on living myself. But you've got to be the example. It's not just talking. Words are freaking cheap. Seriously cheap. So all this little presentation here on some level is very cheap. I have to live it. And once I live it, then that's it. But now I know. I know exactly what my focus is. The rest of my life anyway. And there you have it. Namaste.
Thank you, John.
Anybody else have any last thoughts?
Well, I guess that's what I was saying, is there are people who, you know, belief versus knowing. But they know that they're going to fail. They know.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like you wish you could help, like you just said, you want to help them go, don't you see what you're doing? You're manifesting that stuff for yourself day after day.
And the thing is, but the thing about that is through that process, it's like maybe I have to beat my head against the wall to know not to do that. And I can walk up and say, don't beat your head against the wall, but they're like, you know, they have to do it. That's why trying to bring peace to the planet, to me, is misled. Because some people need to live through war to get it. Yeah, right. And that's grade 3. You let them do their thing.
Yeah.
You simply, once you get to a certain level, you interfere less. You'll know when to, because it's not interfering. Because if you judge something, you're interfering. So if something comes your way and you're in a particular knowing, then you know what to do. There's no guessing. There's no like, I hope this happens. in your own life. You start creating it for yourself, and then what comes along the way, there's no like interfering. You're just doing what you're led to do in the moment, and there's no judgmental aspect. It's just a knowing and a perception of seeing this expanded awareness, and that's it. Did I ever answer your question? Okay.
I remember asking you that for a long time. I remember asking you, because I'm like, yeah, but if I decide not to.
Yeah, but what?
somebody-
Yeah, but like when, like you said, you helped me because like a lot of times I'm saying, oh, hey, am I judging that person? And then I say to myself, no, you're becoming aware of what they're doing, what they're creating.
Yeah. And the less, and to make a real strong point on that, because judgment is one of the main things that tells you you're not out of a certain grade yet, and you cannot go into self-mastery until you drop judgment. So when you can look at somebody, and maybe your heart opens to them and you want to help them, but you don't judge them where they are. If you're looking at them and you're judging them as being stupid or wrong, you know what I mean? That's when you're in the wrong place. But if you can still love them, even though what you perceive to be them doing something wrong or bad, right, then you're in the right place if you can look at them with love and the same place.
What's the difference between, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What's the difference between judging something and having a feeling about it?
I think if having a feeling, it would be my own intuitive nature.
That's where we kind of get into that gray area. To me, the judgment, I think Stephen said that pretty good, is when you want to start changing, if you feel like you got to change someone else or change yourself because somebody else's morals or perspective, like, for example, in the Catholic religion, divorce is considered a no-no, to the point that sometimes in certain areas you're actually ostracized from your own church for doing what feels right. For what's right in your heart. And to me, that is a judgment. That they're judging divorce across the board.
Right.
Okay, you're judging. Let's say somebody says homosexuality is whatever. That judgment cuts off an entire group of people, race, color, whatever it is. We got to stop doing that to move forward. But some people need to learn that level. Some people are in that level, so you just can't let yourself be pulled into that.
Because wait till somebody's in your family that has it,
right.
And all of a sudden, maybe homosexuality isn't so what I thought it was, because now it's personal.
Speaking around homosexuality, I went from high school right into military. 7 days later, I was in the military.
Wow.
And I was pretty ignorant, to be honest, at my young, stupid age. And like Tom said, when something comes into this is the thing about learning something, you learn it on a personal level. I learned, and I didn't perceive myself as having anything around sexuality, any charge, anything like that. But when I got out of the military, I went to work for somebody, and he was very open. You may want to say the term flaming. He was a great guy, but what happened is through the experience of somebody in your reality that is different, and the person is loving and accepting, but accepting can you be? You know what I mean? So our judgments is when I would look at that without not even knowing what the hell that's about and go, okay, that person, blah, blah, blah. But that's what reality is about. We come into reality to have a personal experience, and you cannot take the personal experience away. If somebody's in an abusive relationship, I would love to say people like that. But you know what? Anybody I've ever run into, if they're not ready, they can't get out. You can't tell a fourth grader to get out of that. Maybe they need to learn to love themselves through the process, right? But we come into the reality to have the experience to get it. That's why, otherwise we could just sit up in whatever that is and read our origami book, and get it. But no, we come in to experience it. Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Experience. Anything else? Woo! I feel like I ran a marathon.
Next week, Thursdays, what time do you?
The normal group time is 6 to 8. Tonight I had to go later, but usually it's Thursday 6 to 8, Sunday 6 to 8.
Okay.
And usually, Tom, the setup is like we're looking at someone's issues and we're looking at the mind, the body, spirit, and trying to address it as a whole.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I think it'd be right up your. Yeah, I like to pull meditation into it. You ebb and flow out of things, but meditation to me really brings things home and focuses. So yeah, meditation.
Get more popular, you'll have to have a bigger room.
Yeah.